I'm Kyle Blakely with Mark Waller, and this is We Have Issues, a podcast about local, state, and federal issues here in Colorado. When I say local, I mean here in the Pikes Peak region. Mark, how's it going?
Going pretty well today. Other than this freaking Vistaprint order that never showed up at my house, frustrating beyond belief. But we'll get that done. Get the new business cards out there at some point.
Well, I'm sure as this episode goes far and wide, somebody from Vistaprint will hear about that comment and
Yeah.
and probably offer you your whole order for free. So,
Well, I'm no doubt they're going to be advertisers at some point. Maybe our merch provider. I can't wait to get a coffee cup, and I got my South Africa mug today, but I can't wait to be lifting this coffee cup that has our mugs on the mug. I think that's going to be incredible.
nice. Yeah, I've got my Yeti coffee mug that you can't see, that you can barely see through my background, but it's a promotional item because I'm too cheap to buy one on my own.
Yeah, Yetis are spendy. It'll be great when we build this thing to the point where we can actually buy Yetis with our mugs on it. Wouldn't that be pretty cool?
True, true.
Tell me about the background today.
I am sitting at the Maroon Bells. This is actually from what I understand, the most photographed location in Colorado. Incredibly beautiful area. I have actually hiked through there and backpacked through there and that kind of stuff. But today, this photo is in honor of our guest, who we're going to get to in a little bit, Adam Frisch, who's running for the Congressional District 3 seat on the Dem side over, well, I always say the Western Slope, but it's the Western Slope, Southern Colorado, and half the frickin' state. So it's in honor of him today. I thought I'd go hang out at the Maroon Bells.
Well, he's probably going to be happy to see that. This poor guy, ran against Boebert a couple of years ago, got within what, 600 votes, planned on beating her this time after, all of her, less than flattering coverage in the media, we'll say. And then all of a sudden he gets the rug yanked out from under him. And she's, nope, I'm not going to run in that district. That's going to be too much of a fight. I'll just switch districts and run on the Eastern Plains.
Yeah, and looks like she's got a great chance of winning as a carpetbagger. Who knows? But it'll be interesting to see how, if any way, he changed his strategy when she bailed and what he's doing different. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. But before we get to Adam, I want to talk about a local issue, a little something that's popped up over the last week or two with our city council. For years now, I've always felt like our city council was pretty much on good terms, cordial to each other, very professional, all of that. And then we kind of have this issue recently where one of the council members, Dave Donaldson, at a public meet or at a regular council meeting, asked three of the other council members if they would recuse themselves from a vote because they got money from the developer whose issue was up for a vote. And then council turns around and censures Dave. So to me, and again, I haven't talked to any of the parties involved. I've mostly just read and talked to people, but I don't know. What do you think of it?
First of all, no disrespect. When we talk about our council members, we're not talking about Monument, Palmer Lake, Fountain, any of those councils. We're actually talking about the city of Colorado Springs here.
You're right. I live in the city limits, so that's how I was referring to it. So thank you very much.
Well, I deal with the high-powered Palmer Lake city council on occasion, and they're, I think, far exceeding stuff that's being done in the city of Colorado Springs. So,
well, aren't they flush with weed cash now?
Gosh, loads of weed cash. I think they're trying to save all that because they're worried that it's going to become legalized everywhere and they're going to lose out on that revenue at some point. But yeah, flush with weed cash. Put that should be on the city moniker, right? As you're pulling into Palmer Lake, instead of saying elevation, whatever, we're high on weed cash.
Or just keep a running total instead of just have a running total of how much weed money they have.
That comes in. Yeah, absolutely. But no, yeah. So I mean, seriously, I've been following that issue a little bit in the city of Colorado Springs. I think you set it up pretty well. I've always hated that argument that, hey, a developer gives you money and therefore you must recuse yourself from a vote. First of all, yeah, I mean, I know Dave Donaldson a little bit. We've talked. He seems like a decent enough guy to me.
Yeah.
He ran for House District 16 a couple of years ago, and he took money from those same developers, and did it appropriately, right? I mean, it's okay to do that. We don't just want rich people running for office that can fund their own campaigns. I mean, you have to take campaign contributions and donations in order to be able to run for office. And when I was in office and this issue would come up, it would always irk me and irritate me, for somebody to say, somehow my vote could be bought for $1,000 or, $2,000 or, $100, whatever it is, when there's a 40 or $50 million project going through the city. I mean, if it's going to be about buying my vote, it's going to cost a whole lot more than that when it comes to a massive project, right? I mean, that's kind of ridiculous.
So at some point we'll find out what your price was. Is that
Yeah, well, we haven't gotten there yet, so no, I'm only kidding. But it's one of those deals where it seems to me it's a ridiculous argument, because if you don't take campaign contributions, you're only going to have rich people run for office, and we don't want that. We want citizens to serve in places like city councils and school boards and county commissions and even in the state legislature. It's not a place where just rich people should be able to serve. And so you have to take those campaign contributions. And likewise, I've never known a developer that said, hey, this campaign contribution comes with strings, and you better be voting for my issue if it shows up or when it shows up before you. I don't think that's how it works at all. I think developers, like any interest group that's out there, want to get candidates elected that are like-minded. That's what it comes down to. And I think, developers, which, by the way, provide a very necessary function in our communities, right? I mean, how many people out there have, kids that are growing up that don't want them to live in their basement when they're older, but want them to live in the community? That means you got to have more housing.
Yeah.
You just can't operate unless you have more housing. And you get all these people that, it seems like as Colorado's grown and grown and grown, we keep adding all of these people to the state. We get to the point where, okay, everybody wants to close the doors. And so, in my time, Kyle, when I was on the county commission, I learned kind of two things about people that live in El Paso County. Number one, they want to live absolutely free of government interference in their lives, but they're good if you check in on their neighbor on occasion, right? Like, don't look at all the shit I'm doing at my house, but that guy's doing something wrong and you better check in on him.
Yeah.
Other thing I learned, everybody wants their house to be the last one built.
True.
So it's okay, we built my house and I interrupted the guy's view behind me, but by God, you better not build something in front of me and interrupt my view, because all of a sudden that's now private property right. And so everybody talks about private property and having an interest there. But it is so incredibly frustrating because nobody really knows what private property rights are truly about. And it's really about, where your right begins and my right ends. I think developers work really hard to get that right. I think they shouldn't have to apologize for building housing in the state of Colorado. And they take huge risks when they do it. And I think they shouldn't have to apologize for supporting candidates for office that are going to be like-minded and are going to be more friendly when it comes time to getting development done.
Yeah, I agree. I've worked with candidates before that received money from developers. Never once heard that came with strings attached, that you had to vote, definitely vote for their issues, that kind of thing. The other thing that I don't know, I've always found it kind of interesting is people complain about developers when it comes to growth. But if developers were responsible for excessive growth, they'd build 20,000 houses a year.
Right.
If they thought it would attract people. But if you look at the new housing builds, When the economy's bad, it goes way down. It's a demand-driven market, and they're just responding to it. The other thing, developers donate a lot to local politics because a lot of what local government deals with are land use issues.
Mm-hmm.
A big part of what they deal with. And so you're naturally going to find developers wanting to pay more attention to local politics for those reasons. So yeah, I just thought it was kind of interesting that Dave asked them to recuse themselves at that particular time.
Now, and Adam's in the waiting room, but I'll just kind of finish up with this thought here. I mean, having said that, I thought it was wrong of him to do that. I thought it was wrong to ask for them to recuse themselves. But I also thought it was kind of wrong for them to come back and censure him for saying that. It just, keeps the story going. It doesn't do anything productive, and it only divides the lines up even further. So kind of frustrating all around that way, but this is what you get when you pay people $6,250 a year to manage a city of over 500,000 people.
Very true, very true. And I say let's go ahead and bring Adam in, and at some point in the future we can come back to this issue if it comes back around. But
I'm sure this one is not done. There we go. Adam's coming in.
First of all, thanks for being here. Really appreciate you coming on and doing this episode with us. Before we dive into some of the other questions, though, maybe start with just some of your background and why you're running, and kind of maybe why you feel like you're the best person for this job, so our listeners can get to know you a little bit.
That's great. Well, listen, happy 4th of July, a couple of days after. Great to be with you, Mark and Kyle as well. Listen, it's been kind of a wild ride for me. I was born actually in Fort Peck Indian Reservation in the very northeastern part of Montana. My dad was in the Indian Health Service for about 5 years. My mom was doing some early childhood education and kind of the rural parts of America. My dad's dad came over from Europe, escaped Nazis, that whole conversation, and ended up opening up a little grocery store. My grandfather and my 2 great uncles taking care of the miners, actually. My dad grew up in a mining town. Virginia, Minnesota has one of the largest open pit mines in the entire world. It produced a lot of the iron ore that went on a train down to Duluth, where my mom was born, and got on the Great Lakes oceanways or lakeways, and actually stopped in Pittsburgh, stopped in Detroit, and it produced a lot of the steel that won us World War I and World War II. So kind of epic stories of a mining community that my dad grew up in. My mom's grandfather came over from Europe and opened up a cattle trading business, and my cousin now runs MJ Wittes. It's the 4th generation owner-operator of a feed store grain elevator in northern Minnesota as well. I ended up growing up in Minneapolis, kindergarten, kind of through high school. I spent a little time ski racing. I was okay, I was good, not great. Ended up going out to the University of Colorado, where I was going to race in Boulder. I ended up getting hurt, but I ended up staying for obvious aesthetic reasons and educational reasons. It's hard to study there. I can vouch for that. I'm not sure things have changed in Boulder very much. I went out to New York City on a bit of a whim. I started off waiting tables. Did that for about a year and kind of fell into working in finance and investments for about a dozen years. I spent the good part of the last 8 or 9 traveling the world. I think I went to about 40 or 50 countries, did business in another 40 or 50, really focused on kind of interest rates and currency markets. And at the end of the day, went through a bunch of 9/11 funerals at the end of 01 and the start of 02. And that's what had me kind of do a reset. And I figured I'd come out to Colorado to clear my head. I ended up meeting the proverbial girl in the Western Slope, and we've been living, I call it, in the upper Pickens County Valley. We've been living in Aspen, Woody Creek area for about 20 years. And I got into home building and construction. I thought that'd be an interesting business opportunity to do. And I like the project management of building, and it worked out pretty well. My wife's family grew up in the manufacturing business. My wife started at age 5 working for her father's manufacturing business, and went back to work with him to run that business for a while. It's certainly not easy to be a manufacturer in the United States these days. And, she was on the school board for a while. I was on the city council. We call that elected community service. And we now have an 18-year-old son, Felix. a lot of people I've met on the campaign trail. He actually just he took his junior year of high school off in the year of 2022, and he did schooling online. And we basically did a 25,000-mile father-son road trip through this huge district. And then my wife's been very involved, Katie, with the campaign as well. Felix just graduated from high school, and he's going to defer college for a year to work in the campaign. And then we have a daughter who's just turned 17. She's about to turn 17, or she just turned 17, sorry. And is going to be a senior here at the local high school. And so, I mean, that's kind of been my ride for a while. It's been great. We've been fortunate to stay busy, live in a beautiful place, and give back. I'm always kind of in this learning, earning, returning mode, and it's been good. So that's kind of where we are. I would take a step back and go back to the late summer, early fall of 21. The current representative made some comments, and I would say this with honesty, as everything is. I'm not sure. I don't exactly remember what she said. Let me just say they were on brand.
And current representative Lauren Boebert, we
Yes.
all know who it is.
Yeah.
Know how she got elected.
For those that don't know, we had the closest race in the country in the House race of 2022. We were supposed to lose by 40,000 votes from all the procrastinators
Let me guess. Let me guess. It was like 563 votes.
Yeah, 546.
Oh, I was close. That's awesome.
Close.
Very close.
Anyway, so a couple months before then, the Rep. Boebert made some comments, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is not good for the Republicans. It's not good for the Democrats. It's not good for the state, the country, and it's certainly not good for CD3, which I do need to make a mention. First of all, it's 50% of the geography of our state. I'm going to push back against our 7 representatives. We have the most beautiful part. There's certainly some places I wouldn't mind having in on the Eastern Plains, and we're in the Gooses up north, and Brittany Pedersen as well. But we have our district's
or
actually
Doug Lamborn down here in El Paso County, one of the most beautiful places. But look, I mean, Kyle is in your congressional district as we speak. I mean, look at that background.
Yeah, that's the Bells. I've not been to the top of the Bells. I have been to the top of Pikes Peak. I did run up there one year a couple of years ago. So our district's bigger than Pennsylvania, like the entire state of Pennsylvania, and it takes about 10 hours for my son and I to drive from pretty much Otero County, New Mexico border, almost to Kansas, not quite, all the way up to Dinosaur, basically where Utah and Wyoming gather in Colorado. And so I just had this, I'm like, oh my goodness, someone needs to do something. And well, I've done some leadership stuff a lot, and I have this history of standing up when it's important to stand up. But until then, I never really thought about running for Congress. And I mean that, with sincerity. As I said, if there was a Get Stuff Done party, I'd be in the Get Stuff Done party. But I thought that the best way to see Lauren Boebert defeated was to register as a Democrat, run as a very conservative one, because that's just who I am, and I think that's what the district fits. And knowing full well it's going to be a challenge on a couple of factors. One is the first layer of challenge was showing up at a Democratic primary, and I would tell people right off the bat, like, listen, I know the last thing you're looking for is a fairly successful, straight, middle-aged white guy from a mountain town, let alone Aspen. And I'm fully aware of that connotation, and that was why I was thinking, like, I'm not sure I can get by a primary. We ended up having a victory
and a developer to boot. I mean, how does a developer become a Democrat? I mean, come on, construction defects in the state. We'll save that for another day.
No, we need to change that law. But I hear you. And then I knew that, I thought that if a really conservative Democrat could get by and focus on the district, and I said for a long time, I'm not here to focus on Team Republican or Team Democrat. I'm here to focus on Team CD3. And that's the only thing that I think is really, really valid. The vast majority of the people in our district, as well as the state, are kind of between the 2 40-yard lines. And I'm just naturally, I think one of the reasons we've been able to do well is what I tell people in Otero County or in Moffat County, which are very conservative, is exactly the same conversation I've been telling people in Durango or in Telluride, which are a lot more progressive. And I stand on my ground about what I believe, and I don't tailor my conversations or my view to the audience. I just think I represent kind of my mom's called it the pro-normal party coalition. So we've been kind of focusing on this. Anyways, we took a run of it. I stuck to my guns. A lot of people didn't believe we had any chance in doing this. And I'm just telling you, like, there's a lot of crazy people in the world. There are not that many crazy people in the world. And we can figure out a way to kind of build a coalition, as I said, the pro-normal thing. And so we came very close. We got no support from anybody, really. It was a lot of hard work. We had some early adapters that kind of believed in our story. Every time the representative opened up her mouth, we ended up generating some money, which is always great, and that happened often. But it was, we also earned a lot of this, through those 9 months. I had to register as a Democrat. I had to convince a bunch of Democrats that I was a good option to build a path forward. And then when we ended up barely winning the Democratic primary, we had to take on probably one of the top 3 or 4 most well-known people in the country, and going up against the 538 politics, the chattering class in Denver and in DC. The Republicans blew us off. The Democrats blew us off. My mom, it took me 5 times to call her before she returned my call, telling her what I was trying to do. But we drove 25,000 miles in 9 months. And basically since February of 2022, I've driven 58,000 miles now, and I've basically been home 5 or 6 days for like a month for the last 2 years.
So when Lauren was in this race, I know this is one of the top targeted seats for the DNC, right? And I'm sure there was tons of third-party money locked and loaded for this race. But what happened when she switches then from the 3rd Congressional to the 4th Congressional, and you end up with an opponent that maybe the DNC wasn't going to be targeting? I mean, is this still one of the top tier races for Democrats to pick up in this election cycle, or is it kind of dropped and become less of a priority since she's no longer in the race?
I would say I'm not sure. I don't spend a lot of time talking to people in DC, but we'll circle back just to give everyone a 1-minute scenario. We started off running against Boebert in 2024. There's obviously a lot of concern from their side because she did so poorly. We did well. We had some polling that we did like in August that had us up 2 points. I think Trump was up 5 points in the district, and we were up 2. And so you were seeing a division, as you're seeing elsewhere in the country. You have 5 Democrats in Trump districts, and you have 18 Republicans in Biden districts. So you see 25 districts, 5% of them have figured out a way where people are focused on the district, and you get rewarded for that and on the party stuff, right? So we were doing well. We were raising the money. She was running scared. And then she had her kind of self-inflicted incident down in the Denver Arts Center, the Beetlejuice thing, which I don't need to spend time on. You can pick on her, but
we've talked about that plenty, my friend.
That was obviously that really set her back. We do know that there was some polling done in mid-December by the representative, not about her primary, but about her general. And I'm not sure what those results were. We do have the questions. I can email them to you because some friends got asked them. But she made a decision about 2 weeks later. I think like the 27th or the 28th of December, I get a phone call from a friend of ours on the campaign who spent a lot of time working in Republican circles, spent a lot of time working for Scott Tipton, who I like Gene and Scott a lot, and I think they've done a good job. And then all
Scott's
of a sudden,
a great friend of mine. We were freshmen together in the state legislature. I know Scott well. Great friend.
Yeah. And so, listen, anyone who's taking the job seriously, I'm good with, regardless of the blue and the red and all that kind of stuff. And I mean that sincerely. And so basically, she had some polling numbers. She must have been down by a lot, because you don't bail, as you guys know, for 3 or 4 points this far out. But either she decided or someone told her that she should actually go over and take on and see if she could win in Ken Buck's seat. And that's how she ended up going over there. So
yeah, once he stepped down.
Yes, after. Yeah, he was not, she was not going to challenge him. That was not going to happen, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you, the rumor was in, party circles, being a Republican, that she wanted to run in CD5. But Lamborn had not stepped down at that point. I'm convinced if Lamborn had stepped down before Buck, she would have moved to Colorado Springs instead of Eastern Colorado.
Listen, she would have moved to Florida if there was a spot in Florida.
You go.
She's been bent on trying to figure out how to get into Congress, and spent no time talking about her personal story, the formal education, everything else like that. You know, she had the ability to make a really great story about a really upbringing and getting to Congress and really doing something interesting. And I'll just kind of leave it at that. But listen, whether the 5th of Colorado or the 17th of Florida Congress, but anyway,
Sure.
that's done. So I think to your question, which is what does the race look like now, right? And so yeah, we're running against this gentleman, Jeff Hurd, who we've always assumed that was going to be our candidate. Jeff and I, you know, I've been outed saying that he is a good father and a good husband, and I think he's actually on tape saying the same thing about me. And we had a couple of conversations.
Except I'm gonna, you know, we're gonna see the mail piece or hear it on the radio. You know, Adam Frisch doesn't know his daughter's own birthday. You know,
Yeah. So, well,
I'm kidding.
Sorry. No, I knew it was June 22nd. What I did know, and maybe I'm being sympathetic to President Biden, was I knew her birthday. I didn't know the date it was. I was like, okay, is it early June or is it late July? Anyways.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
But
So let's talk about the Biden comment. I think it was last week. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, your position or your feeling that President Biden should step down.
yeah.
Just curious, again, kind of your thoughts on that, and a little bit of, I'm curious. I mean, do you think that hurts your chances, helps your chances? I just
on the health of my children, I'm not sure if it's good or bad for my race. I know it's good for the country, and I mean that with sincerity. And I appreciate the skepticism out there, but if you look at our Twitter account and some other things and some of the phone calls I've received, you would think it was the dumbest thing that I've ever done. And I've done a couple of dumb things. But, you know, so listen, I said 2 years ago that I was with 75% of the country that did not like this rematch and wanted to see something else. I said a year and a half ago that it's incumbent on both parties to have an open primary and have a contested primary and to go through that. And I find it a little hypocritical for the Democratic Party to talk about the other party having a cult when one party actually had an open primary and the other party, the Democrats, worked very, very hard to shut down any type of a competitive conversation, including with my friend, middle and high school friend, Dean Phillips, who I actually grew up with, who actually ran, you know, as a pro-business Democrat, and was basically gaslit by the Biden administration in the White House and shut down primaries in Florida and elsewhere to do that. So, and you know, for the longest time, I've been saying both candidates are too old. Both candidates should be getting out. I appreciate I have zero effect on one party, and I'm not sure how much I have on the other. And so obviously, I didn't watch the debate. I don't watch debates live, but halfway through the debate, I started getting text messages and started to see some comments. And when the most liberal columnists in the New York Times are saying that the president needs to cease his reelection, you know something's gone wrong. So I tuned into the post-debate analysis. And listen, I was horrified, for the lack of a better term. I mean, not just on the ability to be able to serve the country in the next 4 years, the ability to be able to win. And so I thought about it for a day or two. We happened to be down in South Colorado. I was in Southwest Colorado. I was down in Montrose. And over the next couple of days, we had long planned meetings with a variety of people in Durango and a variety of people in Ouray County and Ridgeway. And I would say independents, Democrats, Republicans, about 80% of the people thought that he should get out. A combination of he can't win, as well as he should not be trying to serve the country over the next couple of years. And then a couple of people, even some of these hardcore Democrats, were like, hey, Adam, you have aligned into some really important people in the country. Not everybody does. If you really feel this way, you really need to let them know what you feel. And that sat with me for a little bit, and I've never been shy. I made it very clear when Biden came out with the student loan relief / bailout. I came out pretty hard and pretty quickly that I was against that in an op-ed and a letter. And it's not that there's not a huge problem with inflation in higher education. It's just that, you know, I have a little bit of economics behind me. Putting $500 billion into a market does not make the price go down. Like, right, we can just start right there. Let alone, I don't want any president having the signing power of $500 billion. And I pushed back against the president on a lot of stuff that didn't represent our district. And so I sat down and I told the team what I was thinking about doing. And a couple of them are like, you're crazy. And a lot of them are like, hey, listen, Adam, you've always run the campaign on what you feel and what your gut is, and it's been really good. And you should express that if that's what you feel. So lo and behold, we sent something out on Tuesday. We were not trying to be first. I think we were the first candidate and the second person in the party across the country that actually said that, listen, both candidates aren't fit for office. They should both step down. But obviously I was focusing on President Biden's race. And my opening comment was, only in politics is stating the obvious so rare. And that just goes to the heart of where we are as a country in our politics. You have, rightly so, a lot of Republicans in Congress, in the House and the Senate, were being lambasted for saying all these things privately about President Trump, former President Trump. And then they would get publicly in front of a microphone and say all these glowing things. And sure enough, now the Democratic Party is doing the same thing. They're running around on television or kind of in the channels of ether saying that they're concerned about the president. They don't think he can win. They don't think he can serve out the next 4 years. And then publicly, they have no comment, or they're saying some type of minimum support. And listen, I'm not here to say that the president isn't a good person or that he hasn't had some good policies, but obviously I don't think last Thursday night or whenever that was a one-off moment. I think his team of 12 people have been hiding him for a long time. As soon as you turn down the Super Bowl interview, which is watched by a gazillion people, and regardless if it's a Democrat or a Republican, it's a pretty softball conversation. You see, you have the least amount of press conferences inner circle. And not only they're protective, they seem to be in denial about where these 27 polls are and where his approval rating is.
So did you get any feedback from the White House or the DNC when you did that? I mean, has it impacted fundraising? I mean, do you think that, having him at the top of the ticket's gonna hurt you? I mean, what's all going through the mind here from a tactical perspective? And, I mean, obviously you can't govern if you don't win, right?
Yeah, that's one of my lines that I say all the time. That's what I've told those people that, listen, there's a lot of people that are upset with me that have been, stalwarts in the Democratic Party. And I appreciate their frustrations, that they see a good person that's done a lot of good things. But when they tell me that it was a one night bad night, or they tell me 27 polls aren't wrong, I bite my tongue. I try to be respectful back. Politics, as you guys know better than I do, it's a very emotional conversation. And I respect that, and I try to honor that as much as I can without getting into the ability of me not be able to tell people what I truly think. And so, yeah, some of our small dollar donations certainly have been frustrated. You can see publicly on my Twitter account that people are threatening to not vote for me and going to stop sending me money. And I assume they could be saying a whole lot worse. But, a lot of people reached out to me in the district, in Colorado, around the country, saying thanks for being brave and stating the obvious. And so we'll have to see. I don't have any conversations with the White House. I don't expect them to react. There's a lot more people that are actually finally coming out and expressing their concerns about the president running for re-election. We'll have to see how it all plays out. I think, people aren't voting until mid-October, right? And no later than November 5th or 6th. I can't remember when. So we think we have some time. I'm always open to people. I get people complaining to me all the time because I'm running as probably the most conservative Democrat in the country and probably the most independent person. I'm probably the least partisan person who's ever run for Congress. I got a father hat to wear. I got a husband hat to wear, a small business hat to wear, a Colorado hat to wear, an American hat to wear. I don't have a lot of headspace and to kind of figure out how to put on full front Democratic Party. I'm running as a Democrat. I'm proud to do so. But there's so many other things that define me who as I am. So I've been used to getting the stalwarts of the Democratic Party, and I try to be respectful, and I return every single email and every single phone call. And we do that no matter if they're cheering what I'm having to say or if they're really, really concerned about what I've just said.
So again, and I asked a lot of questions in that last question, but top of the ticket. Do you think the president hurts Democrats, generally speaking, at the top of the ticket, or are they going to largely be left alone?
Okay, so Mark, thank you. Anytime, I never try to avoid anything ever. So if I end up going on off a tangent or if I answer a couple questions in there, please come back right away. So thanks. Listen, I for the whole time, listen, the district is a Republican district at the presidential level. It goes back and forth, but not over the past 15 years. Down ballot, it's a little bit different. And so I have not spent any time trying to figure out about the presidential races and the county commissioner races. I'm focusing on CD3. So yeah, on one hand, it's certainly not great that other people on your ticket are going to lose the district. If they're actually going to be on the ballot, we'll have to see about that. But again, I'm focused on what the importance of CD3 is. One of my refrains I said a lot in a lot of these Chamber of Commerces and Grand Junction and in Montrose and Delta, and I would even say, when I was in Durango as well, which is obviously more progressive, like, I don't care who people voted for in 2016. I don't care who they voted for in 2020. I don't care who they vote for in the rest of the 22 ballot. I will say, I don't care who you vote for on the rest of the 2024 ballot. All I ask you to think about is you and your family and your business and your community. Who do you want you representing you in the House of Representatives to talk about the rural aspects of healthcare, managing a safe and secure border, trying to get strong domestic energy in Colorado and the United States, and making sure that we have a mental health crisis that gets dealt with at the regional level. And these are the things I'm focused on. And I'm going to go to DC. I'm going to join this Problem Solvers Caucus. It's made up of an equal number of Democrats and Republicans. I want to join the Western Caucus, which I think is 80 members. There's Mary Patola in Alaska. And then there's 79 Republicans, right? And so I'm there to focus on public lands, domestic energy, protecting our rural way of life, and really the producers of this state and of the country, not so much on the consumer side. And to me, this rural-urban divide that everyone talks about, to me, it almost comes down to those that are producing things and those that are consuming things. And I have that might be another podcast to talk about, but I'm a big believer. I'm pro-producer.
Man, I'd love to talk to you about those issues, because I think a lot of folks in your party tend to focus on consumers and look at producers as being kind of evil people.
Yeah. So, let's talk about that for a couple of minutes. We have 64 counties in the state. I would say 50 of them are producing things. Now, for me, I have people producing steel down in Pueblo. We have people producing potatoes and farm goods in the San Luis Valley. And we have people producing energy right on the Western slope. And then you have 12 or 13 counties, including where I live, that are mostly consumer oriented, right? You Boulder, the Front Range, some of the resort communities. And listen, I will tell you, after 58,000 miles, every producer understands you need a consumer. The problem is not every consumer, including those in the state capital, understand that as long as the light switch goes on and there's electricity, as long as beef is in aisle 6, and as long as water comes out of the tap, what's the problem about making it very, very hard to produce things? It's all about making sure that we're doing the right things, in my mind. And I try not to spend too much time on the state capitol, but obviously there's enough people in there.
Yeah, lucky you. I spend a lot of time there. Yeah. Lucky you.
But I'm pro-producer. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, for me, there's no bigger divide that way than consumers of housing versus producers of housing.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So Adam, I was looking at your website, and I know you've talked about a lot of different issues. You have an incredibly, as you've even mentioned, unique district. It's huge geographically. It's very pockets of different, very conservative, more liberal, all of that. Is there one of those issues that seems to be rising to the top throughout your district, or is it really you go to Otero County and it's this, and you go to Grand Junction and it's this, or is there something that's really rising to the top?
Thanks. So we have 27 counties. We have some of the wealthiest counties in the country, and we have some of the least well off in the country as you go down the San Luis state line, right? We have counties, Kyle, that are 85% Republican. We have counties that are 85% Democrat. So they're all beautiful. And I love all 27 of my children just the same.
You know, we tend to get races, most races, with the exception, obviously, of this one and just a few others, most are settled in the primaries. So you tend to get people that are, the far extreme, either the far left or the far right, and then they can't figure out how to come together and work with others. It's so incredibly frustrating. I was in the legislature 10 years ago, and it was a wildly different place than it is today.
Yeah.
If you have in my party, you have your picture taken with a Democrat, you're an obvious tax and spend liberal and clearly a rhino. I mean, I get called a rhino so much, I'm starting to
I get called a
grow
dino all
horns.
the time, Mark. So we have something in common.
There you go.
The liberals call me a dino and the Republicans look at me. Are you sure you're a Democrat? Listen, I'm an American and I'm a father. That's where we focus. It's interesting, like CD3, it's big. I don't think there's a lot of, at this federal level, if you look at our map of the 8 districts, I don't think there's a lot of gerrymandering going on about the kookiness of some of those other stuff. Having said that, there's no doubt both parties have gone to their extreme, and there's no doubt that 85% of the 435 districts in the country are cooked in the primary. And while we have really great, safe, secure elections, and I will honor whatever election comes
Yeah,
up.
which, by the way, why aren't you complaining about that? I mean, come on, election stolen, 542, 543 votes. Come on.
So yeah, it was, when we were down 550 votes when they counted all the ballots. And this was in November, and I was in DC, part of the new member orientation, because people from both parties go when the race is close, just in case, right? And people were really excited that I was only 550 votes down and there was going to be a recount. And I'm like, guys, I ended up conceding before we actually started the recount. And I just said, listen, it's just not going to change. It'd be a freak of nature. And actually I had to call the representative to Boebert to concede. I won't get into details, but she was on brand. And she's like, well, are you going to stop the recount? And I'm like, Representative, I can't stop the recount. You can't stop the recount. The Secretary of State can't stop the recount. The people have voted to make sure there's an automatic vote. But the reason I'm conceding now is because I don't think there's any way in heck or hell that there's going to be a change of it. And so that's what I'm going to do now. And Mark, they recounted 327,000 votes, and 9 votes changed for a net difference of 4. And so I didn't have any type of election fraud to go on. But going to what your conversation is now, my hat goes off to Ken Theory and some of his team. That 2018, I believe, he brought some conversations about how to allow these independents, which are 45% of our district and something of the state, to have a chance to vote in primaries. I know Democrats and Republicans both aren't thrilled with that at some level. And I'm supportive here publicly to say that I'm also supportive of his new batch of, he's still trying to work on some things, I think, but try to figure out how you break through this party-dominated primary conversation, because that's just not where the majority of the people are. They're between the two 40-yard lines. And I'm much more focused on pro-normal in the 40-yard lines than always carrying around a party flag. And I sense you have some of that same frustration.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, I've been a part of politics in this state for, 15, 20 years now. And it's frustrating beyond belief to deal with the parties the way we do. I mean, first thing I do is get rid of the caucus system, which, saying that in my party is sacrilege, right? I mean, you just can't do that. But I'll tell you, when it comes down to stuff like that, I think that folks are fearful of change, and they're fearful that it's going to help one party versus the other. We had this whole discussion over national popular vote. I've been opposed to the national popular vote, and I'm starting to come around on that. I'm kind of thinking, that gets to 270, you marry it up with this no labels, maybe you get somebody from the middle elected with 35% of the vote. And then that, in a cycle or two translates down the ticket. I don't know. I'm hopeful.
Yeah. Again, I think there's to me, one of my goals is to have more people be represented by people that share those same values. And if 80% of the people are between the two 40-yard lines, 80% of our representatives at the state or the federal are not. And so to me, is we want more people that are more towards the center. And to me, that's a goal. I think there's probably a dozen tools that we can figure out what that looks like. And that's a great thing about the states being these laboratories of democracy. California has this jungle primary. Colorado has a semi-open thing. They're proposing something else. I think up in Maine and Alaska, they do a different version of ranked choice voting. So I think we need to try different stuff, and anything that allows more moderate people to stand up, I think would be really, really helpful. And certainly, I can understand why some Democrats aren't thrilled with changing it, because they're having a pretty darn good run at the state level. I'm kind of more concerned about, like, why don't some of these Republicans want to do something? Because at the moment, I think you can agree, Mark, it's not going super well. And so maybe we have to figure out a way that both parties are kind of forced back to the middle, because competition is good. And right now there's a monopoly in the downtown urban parts of the district in the country, and there's a bit of a monopoly in the rural parts. And we need to figure out a way to break through these monopolies. Monopolies are bad in business and they're bad in politics.
Yeah, I'll tell you, on my side, it's all about purity, right? There's people in my party that think if we get more pure, then we'll win more elections, which makes zero sense at all. It's, addition by subtraction somehow. We're going to win by having fewer, more pure people in the party. Gone are the days of the big tent. So that's been incredibly frustrating. I'm hoping to bring, this kind of back to the middle for us. But listen,
you can join me.
Go ahead.
The pro-normal party, you can join me.
Yeah. Oh, we'd love it. Listen, we've taken enough of your time. Sorry for the technical issues we've had here, but we have one last burning, serious question for you on the podcast. And that is, we know you're on the Aspen Town Council.
I was.
Obviously, a lot of famous people roll through there. Who's the most famous person you've met in Aspen?
Well, first of all, I was on the city council here from 2011 to 2019, and I spent almost all my time working on the small business community and affordable housing, which has obviously turned into a really big deal. Who's the most famous person I've met? That's a good question. During that crazy time in Christmas, when all these celebrities come in, my wife and I, we either go to visit my family in Minnesota or visit her family in upstate New York to get back to kind of real America, if you will. So we don't have a chance to see all these people here. That's a good question, who I've had a chance to meet.
Hey, if you just make something up. I mean, come on. You just,
I know. You actually stumped me, and it wasn't about the hard stuff about the political conversation. I'm trying to think who I had a chance to meet.
Jared Polis probably, right?
Yeah, no, the governor's been up here. I've had time with the Clintons. I've had time with Mitt Romney. We've had time with a lot of business people here a little bit, whatever. But the whole celebrity thing, we kind of just hide in our little house here and try to stay away from that stuff.
Good for you.
I'm proud to be from. I'm not from Aspen. I'm from Fort Peck Indian Reservation, but I'm proud to live here. And I will say that I tell people all the time, be careful of what happens in Aspen happens in the real world everywhere else, which goes back to the conversation about short-term rentals and these communities changing and affordable housing, which used to be an Aspen Telluride problem, and now you're seeing it all over the state. And in a serious manner, I'm very, very focused on trying to make sure that from an employment standpoint and a humanities standpoint, there's enough housing to go around. But and I've seen it on both sides of writing the laws as well as being a builder.
Yeah, I mean, even down here in my neck of the woods in Colorado Springs, El Paso County, affordable housing is a huge problem.
Yeah, and the fact that the business community realizes it's a problem is why we're starting to chip away and seeing some work on that. Because it is important, because these workers need to be able to be somewhere close to their employer, and I appreciate that. And Mark, hopefully next time we're driving down through the Springs, we'd love to stop off in 25 and say hello.
Yeah, love it. Stop by anytime. Anything we didn't ask you that we should have?
No. I'm just,
plug your website before we go, for sure.
Yeah, no, I guess I should make a plug. It's adamforcolorado.com, Adam, FOR, Colorado.com. As you can tell, I am a policy-oriented, normal person, and it's really great to have conversations that last longer than 7-word answers. And as you can tell, to the chagrin of sometimes of my staff, I'm not very scripted. I just sit down and have conversations and speak from the heart. And I think that's what a lot of people are looking for, Democrat, Independent, or Republican, the sincerity and authenticity of people willing to stand up to do the right thing in the right way for the right reasons. And I'm trying to show my Kids that by example.
Hey, and listen, more normal people is better. That's for sure. Wish you were a Republican. I think that'd be a better deal as far as I'm concerned. But hey, we'll take normal. That's what we're looking for.
On all sides.
You know, especially in today's world, because there just isn't enough of it. Thanks you so
Mark.
much for spending the time with us. We really appreciate it. Took way more of your time than we asked for, and so thank you for doing that, and appreciate it. And good luck.
Yep, thank you. How you can edit whatever length you want. I'm good for it all. Thanks, Mark.
All
Say
right,
goodbye to
you
Kyle
betcha.
for me.
We'll talk to you later. Bye bye.
Bye bye.